Derbyites, we are just a few days away from primetime Emmys night early next week after a big extravaganza of Creative Arts Emmys just being showered over Hollywood last weekend. There were thousands of categories announced, and it helps us Emmy seers to work out which shows are probably in with a better chance when it comes to the big categories next week. So looking at drama, firstly, I'm here with Emmy gurus Riley Chow and Amanda Spears. And we're going to talk about the big one of the night, Best Drama Series. Now, consensus has been saying for a while that Handmaid's Tale has been out in front, but Game of Thrones, as usual, did very well at the Creative Arts Emmys and won a bucket load of Emmys, which I think is to be expected. And I don't necessarily believe that that is indicative of Game of Thrones all of a sudden being the favourite. I think The Crown overperformed as well, which is really exciting for this category. And so therefore, I think that those three shows are out front with the other three, Stranger Things, The Americans, and Westworld, and This Is Us, being behind. That's my view. Amanda, I'm going to go to you first. Where do you think this category is at the moment?
I don't know. I mean, every day I change my mind because part of me is like Game of Thrones. You know, you can't just win a series race with just the writers and the actors and the directors. You need all of those people below the line also to support your series. But I think if this is really close between The Handmaid's Tale and Game of Thrones and they're going to split their support, man, The Crown starts looking good. The Crown really starts looking good. And again, we saw on the drama side, if you're not in the drama 7 for series, you are not winning Emmys. So that's bad news for Sandra Oh. That is really bad news for her. She should have been rooting for Cameron Britton up till the envelope was opened, and that was a big problem. So that's become a little clearer. But overall, I think, The Crown really surprised us. And that casting award, I can't decide if that's like a big red flag, like we should all be switching, or if it's like, good for you for casting these first 2 seasons, and in 2 years we'll give it to you for casting seasons 3 and 4. I don't know if it's going to be one of those every other year things where we just see The Crown, of course, wins casting.
Yeah, you have to wonder, like, how far off was The Handmaid's Tale in casting last year and this year? And, if it was far off, does casting matter, as much as, we put all this stock into it? But last year it went to Stranger Things, and the 2 years before that it went to Game of Thrones, and this year it went to The Crown. So is The Handmaid's Tale 4th? Like that's going to be a very weak correlation, going forward, if that was the case. I'd say before the nominations, this looked like The Handmaid's Tale because, it had won last year, and it's also got the importance factor. It's saying something more about our world than, The Crown or Game of Thrones. In terms of nominations, I would say it was a bit of a draw between The Handmaid's Tale and Game of Thrones. Which one did better? The Handmaid's Tale got Kelly Jen in, whereas, Game of Thrones couldn't get Emilia Clarke in. But Game of Thrones also got multiple nominations in categories like editing and directing. And then in terms of who won the creative arts, I'd say it's The Crown, because The Crown beat both of them in casting, also picked up a cinematography win, and as well as costumes. So that's the race that we're looking at, where The Crown, I feel like, makes the most sense on paper right now based on what it's picked up. But ultimately, I have to go with The Handmaid's Tale because I think it's ultimately more important, and it did still have a strong haul in nominations.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think The Handmaid's Tale, to me, it seems like a done deal. I hate saying that, but I said this last year as well, and I will lord it over everybody until the end of time, that everybody was kind of telling me, you're an idiot for picking The Handmaid's Tale, and I didn't think that was the case. And, Stranger Things won the titles category last year, and therefore it must have been out in front, which I just thought was a silly argument. And this year, Handmaid's Tale didn't win everything, but it still won enough. And it's still, as you very rightly say, it had a lot of nominations this year. It almost doubled, I think, its haul from the year before. The Me Too movement, the Trump factor, all that stuff, I think is going to push it over the line really without a lot of effort. And that's where I'm headed. I think it will win a couple even on the big night. Yeah, I think it's going to do very well. And what I can say for sure is that I think Stranger Things, The Americans, Westworld, and This Is Us are completely out of this race. And it's really just going to be a matter of whether The Crown can pull this off, especially if we see some acting wins throughout the night, which is what I'm actually predicting. I think Matt Smith and Claire Foy will win. Amanda, what about you? Are you going to actually switch? Are you going to actually go the full distance and switch over to The Crown?
No, because I'm not completely crazy, but I do worry about The Handmaid's Tale having like a Homeland repeat. Like after Homeland won its first series award for Showtime, and it was, it had a great Golden Globes. Claire Danes won the Golden Globe. It didn't have a great second. It still had a bump up in nominations. But it did not win. It did not keep drama series. So I do worry if Hulu and The Handmaid's Tale can hold on to it. Because overall, it had a wishy-washy season. It had some great highs, but it had a lot of lows too. Whereas Game of Thrones was pretty steady. It was a pretty solid season of Game of Thrones. So, and I still think it's good to win directing. I still think it probably will pick up supporting actor. And you still need the support from below the line. So that's kind of where my thinking is that I know like the social relevance is important for The Handmaid's Tale, but I don't think you can win 2 years in a row on that reason. And the first season was a knockout. They absolutely deserved that Emmy the first season. This season, they struggled without the book. Okay. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I've said a lot too that we can't really tell how much the Emmy voters did not like the later episodes of The Handmaid's Tale because the show is coming out so late, and it came out so late that several of its episodes aren't even technically eligible. So those later episodes, if voters didn't respond poorly to them, or if they love them, we actually don't know based on the nominations. Kind of based on that, I was thinking that The Crown would take cinematography just because I thought, it was relatively strong. And if there's a little bit of backlash, that would be a category where The Handmaid's Tale might not be able to repeat. But yeah, that casting win came out of nowhere. And, as much as Stranger Things won casting last year, so you can kind of say like, oh, maybe they're voting for the show that has the best casting, which is absolutely what you would want. Like the year before, Game of Thrones had won for its 6th season when they cast Max von Sydow and Ian McShane, like not huge achievements beating Mr. Robot, which, cast Rami Malek and had Carly Chaikin and Ron Cephas Jones and, B.D. Wong and Christian Slater with their best roles in years. Like that had, actual casting that I think should have been awarded. And over on the comedy side, last year Atlanta lost when it's a brand new show. You've got Brian Tyree Henry, and now he's everywhere, and Zazie Beetz, who went on to Deadpool. But instead it went to Veep season 7, which, or 6. Like, I don't know who in that cast anybody can recall as being new that season. So a lot of the time in casting, they are just voting for their favorite show, and that has nothing to do with who was actually cast that season, which is why it's so important, even with the one anomaly of Stranger Things winning on merit. So at the Creative Arts Awards, The Handmaid's Tale actually didn't beat The Crown anywhere. It did beat Game of Thrones directly in Guest Actress, but we know that the acting branch has an irrational love of The Handmaid's Tale, nominating Kelly Jenrette, as I mentioned earlier, or even Cherry Jones for her, 4 minutes of screen time.
But not Marissa Tomei.
Yeah. They were too offended by the stunt casting there. They have weird rules about what's okay with them.
I didn't think it was stunt casting, personally, but okay.
And then The Handmaid's Tale, they also beat Game of Thrones in editing, but I can't tell if that supports a win for The Handmaid's Tale or not, because The Handmaid's Tale only got one of its 2 submissions nominated in the first place, whereas Game of Thrones got 3 out of 4. And when you have 3 nominated against 1, it's very rare that you'll be able to overcome vote splitting that way.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call. And I think what I can say for sure is that directing and writing in the drama genre is really more up in the air than a lot of us probably realize, I think. I'm going with the Americans in writing and going with Handmaids in directing, but I would not be surprised to see The Crown take these, or even Killing Eve take the writing one, or, you know, yeah, I just think they're the more exciting categories for me, because I just don't see a lot of drama, part of the pun, in the series category. So
You have
that's
The
my final
Handmaid's
thought.
Tale over Game of Thrones in directing.
I do. I do. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That's
Okay.
my final thought. So give us your final thoughts on the drama category.
Well, what I find so intriguing about The Crown is that, The Crown I thought was really good this year. Like, Amanda, I think it's your favorite drama. It's my favorite drama. Rob, is it yours?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, The Crown is not a show that I thought even deserved a drama series nomination last year. And this year, it was great. So, maybe that change will be reflected in how the Emmys are voting. Maybe there's a reason why they wouldn't just check off the same thing they did last year. I mean, it held on to its same tally of nominations, even though it lost John Lithgow, and its main titles weren't eligible again. It could have lost 7 nominations, like Stranger Things did. It's very rare that we've The Crown. It took casting and cinematography, and it's not nominated in categories like editing or sound mixing. But in the history of the Emmys, we've only ever had a single program that won casting and cinematography and wasn't up for editing, and that was Little Dorrit, also starring Claire Foy, another talky British period piece. So, The Crown, I think it did not do quite as well as A Handmaid's Tale and Game of Thrones in nominations, and that's a big part of why I'm not predicting it. But I think that there are excuses that we can definitely point to in hindsight if it wins. I'm still going with Handmaid's Tale because it's more relevant. But, we just saw at the Oscars how that didn't help Three Billboards, which was a lot more relevant over, The Shape of Water, which was more like your traditional winner, which The Crown is. I think Game of Thrones is third, and I think it's out, and I think it's not going to win a single award at the main telecast.
Love
I have
it.
it predicted to win, so now I need to rethink that. But I love The Crown, and I think if it takes writing or directing, there's your drama series winner. Like, if it upsets in writing or directing, and it has the pedigree to do so, and it takes like maybe 1 or 2 acting awards.
Well, yeah. What happens?
There's your winner.
If Matt Smith wins, and
There's your drama series winner.
Really, and I don't think we can say for sure that any of those acting categories are locked in. I know this Slugfest is not about the acting categories. I'm still going with Claire Foy. I'm not going to give up on that one. And Matt Smith, I'm thinking that could happen, even though Peter Dinklage is the safer bet. I think Matthew Rhys will probably win actor, and I'm going with Yvonne Strahovski. That's a very tough category because there's 3 handmaids.
I think it's Vanessa Kirby or Tandy Newton. I really want to switch to Vanessa Kirby. I think
she had such an amazing season. What an incredible season she had.
She's in the Mission Impossible film, but I'm with you on Claire Foy. I've been predicting her, and I'm not going to switch.
We're going to see some upsets. And, the only thing that I'm upset about is that the best episode of TV that I saw in that season was the Dear Mrs. Kennedy episode of The Crown, and that's not even nominated because it wasn't submitted.
Can we talk about that? I didn't even mention this. There's another reason to back The Crown. It broke the Jackie Kennedy curse in costumes. That's a big deal, people. The film didn't win. There's been 15 TV movies or limited series about that family, and none of them have ever snuck into a costume win before. Even the major film with Natalie Portman, which really should have won costumes, but we can save that for another day. It broke the curse.
But The Crown won last year, so were you thinking that because they submitted the Kennedys that they're probably going to lose, even though the Emmy voters usually go with the same thing over and over?
Well, I thought so because, they don't like Jackie Kennedy, and they don't like reproductions of her costumes. I thought, The Marvelous Miss Maisel could take it, maybe Outlander, because they had the 2 different periods. But it's hard to predict anyone in any of these drama races who's not from one of the drama series 7. So that's really hard for Sandra Oh and also for Killing Eve for writing.
Yeah. All right. We might leave it at that. Thank you.